Actually, ketamine is a medicine that you take, and it, again, sort of separates you from your ego. And it also separates the feelings and the meanings that you've attached to an event. And so typically you will go in and you'll have some sort of intention that you've been working on. Maybe an intention might be ketamine, show me what I need to see. It could be that general. It could be ketamine, show me self-love. Ketamine, show me a way out of this depression or whatever.
Hello and good morning. Welcome back to the Connected Mindset Live. I'm your host, Greg Tomczyk. Really looking forward to this one. One of my early mentors, and you guys often hear me talk about some of the things I've taken from my mentors throughout my experience, mentioned in my mid-20s, he said, Greg, you have to heal yourself before you can go heal the world. I was somebody who really had a big vision for how it was going to impact the world. I wanted people to have more love, more healing, more connection to the world around them. That's what this show is all about. But that advice really resonated with me now that I'm in my 30s and able to really see things a little bit more clear than I saw in my mid-20s. And I go back to that moment when he told me that, and I really didn't resonate with it. I wasn't in the right mindset. I wasn't in the right state in my life. I hadn't gone through the things I needed to go through for that to really sit with me where I could take action. And when I had a conversation with the person on the show with us this morning, it really kind of brought me back to that point where, I needed to revisit some of those things. And we were able to catch up before the show and talk a lot about her journey. And really looking forward to having her on the show for everybody here to listen to her journey and resonate with it. As I always say, it's best to hear somebody speak and then hear your own voice kind of talking to yourself through what they're saying to you. So you're definitely going to experience that today. So Jelisha Gatling, thanks so much for joining us. How's your morning going?
It's going great. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. I'm happy you're here and looking forward to diving in here. So how we like to start off the show is, what mission are you on and what are you hoping that each person listening in today walks away with?
I've been noodling on this concept of human being, not human doing. And it's something I've been saying to myself the past few months. It's giving me a lot of good energy and just helping me to practice presence and, practice being in the moment. And so essentially I want people to walk away thinking about that and like what that looks like for them. And also understanding how healing and helping yourself is very tied to boundaries. Like they go hand in hand. So there's like this logistical piece, but it's connected with being able to just be and knowing that you are worthy, just being, not by what you do or what you accomplish. So that's sort of a summary of what I hope they walk away with.
Yeah. I love that. I think we all need that because we're so doing oriented and the world is so action, 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 or else you're not fulfilling your ultimate purpose or you're not productive. I think we have this word of productive, and I like that human doing. I think a lot of us are human doings, not human beings.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And like judging your day or your week and judging your success by what you accomplish. And so that's just something I've been unlearning for a couple of years. But it's feeling a little easier just like being and truly realizing, no matter what I accomplish today or do, like just not tying my worth or how I feel about myself. And it's an ongoing journey, but it's something that I really want to share with other people. And I love talking about.
Yeah, I love that. I definitely want to explore what got you there. One of the things I talk a lot about when it comes to building trust with individuals internally and then bringing that to the outside world is is self-worth. And, as for myself, I was a baseball player. So a lot of my self-worth was win or loss, or did I accomplish what I set out to do that day? And that's an up and down battle. You can imagine, you lose 2 out of every 3 days. If you win every 2 out of 3, then you become a champion and everything is, up and up. But those down seasons are so, in life and in sports, are so detrimental because your self-worth is so low. And I think a lot of us listening in tie our self-worth to something. And when you mention that, you're tying it to things that are kind of your internal reward system, your internal standards. What does that mean to the average person on trying to detach their self-worth from those external things and kind of bring that more inside?
The first thing that comes to mind is really watching how you talk or judge yourself based on what you're doing or not doing. So if I'm trying to practice just being and like taking breaks without my phone, being able to actually enjoy that or allowing myself to be okay with that and not thinking about what I should be doing or, going on vacation and like you're worrying about work or you're checking emails. It's like you're not really resting if you are feeling bad about it or if you feel guilty about it. That's something I've wrestled with for a really long time. So yeah, I'd say really just becoming aware of the chatter because we're making judgments about what we do and don't do all the time, and it really is all your perspective can change around the same thing. Am I going to beat myself up for snoozing 3 times this morning? Or, am I going to say maybe I needed that? What am I going to make that mean?
Yeah, the meaning making machine is and I think it is perspective because it's all about which side of the coin you're looking at. If you're looking at the person that you're striving to be, and they always say, oh, I wake up at 6 a.m. and if I don't, then my day's ruined. Then that's your perspective that you're looking at that through, and that's the internal chatter. Have you come across any ways of helping people either cleanse the slate of internal chatter or is it more of a rewire of just doing the hard rewiring needed to make sure things are connecting the way you want them to connect?
Yeah, I think it's more the latter because you're unlearning. You're unlearning, and then you need something to replace that with, and that takes time because especially if these are messages that you've been saying to yourself and getting from society, got to get up, hustle. Like you'll sleep when you die. Like, I used to be such a workaholic. Such a workaholic. And my worth was totally tied in what I accomplished, what I did. And really, it's a lot to unpack and then realizing all the macro threads that contribute to that. I think we're, especially America, we are obsessed with productivity and I feel like the values typically are around making money and like you go hard and there's like celebration and pride around working 60, 80 hours a week. And what are we doing? It's like, is that really help? Is that like serving your soul? Like, I don't know. I could go in so many directions. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. Absolutely. Yeah. It's almost, it's the rewiring, but I think one of the things I came across recently was how important unbecoming is, because we're such a becoming world. We have to become this person, but we have to kind of unbecome and get rid of some things that don't serve us, like chasing the self-worth of the trophy for working 80 hours a week, which I used to work at a company, and if you worked more than everybody else and billed more hours, you got a trophy at the end of the month. It was like, good job. And you look at that person and they had circles around their eyes. They, hadn't taken a shower in a couple of days. It was just like, but that was what they wanted you to look up to. And as I got into my own business and tried to redefine what I felt like a healthy and, culture that was going to scale into the future and was right for both the individual and the company, I realized that a lot of the individuals that we brought on had to unbecome and kind of let go of that mindset of the more you work, the better or the higher we're going to look at you from a company performance standpoint.
Right. Right. Yeah. And then like, do you resonate with like those dopamine hits that you get when you hit that milestone, get that promotion, make that salary, that income that you've been striving for? And then it's like, okay, well, what's next? And for some reason, I mean, for so long, I continue to think, oh, the next thing's gonna change my world, and then I can heal. Or I'll be able, like it's really backwards to what you were saying at the top about what your mentor said, right? And I don't really think that we can, I don't believe that healing is like a destination that you arrive at, or, you know, like, oh, I'll be healed once XYZ. But I think it's like a lot of things. It's an ongoing journey where um, hopefully you are able to better manage when your wounds are triggered, and not be so hard on yourself. Like things like that tell me that I am healing. I have more self-compassion. And then if you have more of that for yourself, you also have more of that for the world. Like that's the thing. It's like helping me is helping you, is helping my clients.
Yeah. I think it was Zig Ziglar, one of the speakers out there, that said he had to help himself help others, and then which in turn helped him. But he was he was that people pleaser who always wanted to go out and serve the world, and he found out he was distracting himself. And I found myself, in that stage at multiple times where I was going out and serving people because I didn't know how to kind of heal myself and go internal. So I was distracting myself by going to serve people, and I thought it would just go away. And I think a lot of people listening in today haven't really started that journey. They've done some work, like they maybe they exercise, they do some reading, they read books about some of these healing journeys that people have gone through, but they haven't really broke through or had that moment where it was like, I now need to heal, and it's no longer an option. Which I kind of got to that point in my life where it was, I'm either going to heal or I'm going to stay on the path that I don't feel like is right for me. And it was a painful journey. And I had that moment of like, it's a fork in the road.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of us don't get to the fork in the road. So we don't really, whatever, see the light or have that decision to make. Was it a fork in the road moment, or was it
Absolutely.
Yeah. Or you saw somebody that was healing and you were like, I need to do that as well?
No, it was coming to a point of like, there's no other option. I have to figure, like, I mean, for me, it was more like I have to keep going. Like I had been trying to unpack some stuff for years. And I suffered with chronic depression, like for a long, long time. And it got to a point where it started to get worse about 3-4 years ago. And I was like, no, this can't, like, I'm doing all the things. I'm talking about therapy. I'm trying a new therapist. I'm trying a new modality, diet, like, and really like going in on these different paths. And not to say that they didn't help or give me some insight. I think I got a lot of insight. I made a lot of connections and had a lot of, oh, okay, I get that. But I was still wrestling with like, why do I feel so bad? And then why am I like, I just would go down this really dark hole when I would get in these depressive episodes. And, it especially being in the helping profession, I realize now that I was kind of almost looking at myself. I'm thinking, Jelisha, you're human. Like you're human. I think I was putting this extra pressure, like I'm trying to help people and couples, and I'm seeing, I'm talking about relationships and mental health, and I am really struggling. What does that mean about me? And I'm really trying, like I'm giving it all I got. And so for me, it was like, you've got to maybe try something a little more intense. Like you will find it. I just kind of really was like, I have to find the thing. And if this isn't it, I'm going to try something else. And so, I mean, the big thing for me was ketamine therapy. That was like the big thing that I feel like all of the insights, all of the things that I had intellectualized, like it started to bake in my body. And I actually like believed that it's like I was able to tap back into my old confidence in my 20s. I was like, what do I say? Deliriously confident, like deliriously confident, like quit a job, no backup, pick up and move, don't have a job or an apartment, I stay in a motel, I'll figure it out. Like I just used to like not care. And I was so optimistic and I lost that somewhere along the way, like in my late 20s. And so I've been trying to like get back to that. And I've been getting a taste of her. I've been able to tap into that because, I mean, to sum it up, ketamine, I think the beauty of it is that it takes your ego away and like puts it in a box. And you can do so much. You can see so many possibilities and perspectives, and not like on like, oh, I want to be a dragon. Like I'm not talking about like, this isn't like we're hallucinating and it's like I'm able to see something that was really painful and realize, oh my gosh, I was a kid. Like that wasn't, and it's like I knew that before, but now I believe it. And I forgive myself and I forgive this person. And it's like I literally have had sessions where I could feel rage like leaving my body. I mean, it sounds like it is intense, but it's kind of difficult to describe, but I feel like that has just helped me to like, yeah, that's been a huge game changer for me in so many ways.
That's very interesting. I've been on a plant medicine journey, and it was relatively similar for me, where I kind of needed that extreme experience, and it's not necessarily what a lot of people think of as like when they think about these modalities. They're like, oh, I want to go hallucinate, and I'm going to see my future. I'm going to see what I need to do. And it's like they're looking for that, like the silver rabbit to solve all their problems or issues or obstacles, and that's not what it does. It almost like it's like a mirror. It kind of just gives you the mirror you need. It's not necessarily a window. It's a mirror back to you, which I think a lot of people look for the window. They're like, I need the window into my future so I can solve the world's problems.
That's what I was looking for. Like that's what I was thinking. I was not expecting this, whatever this is.
Yeah. What is, I actually haven't come across ketamine much. What is ketamine, and how is it, looked at in the medical community now? Because I know there's a lot of trials going on. There's a lot of things with MDMA and like all these different substances to really help people unlock parts of themselves or heal PTSD, things of that nature. So what is ketamine, and how can folks learn more about it?
Yeah. So ketamine, it is a form of anesthesia. It's actually used in hospitals for surgeries, which I didn't know before starting my research with this. I only knew of it as like the street drug. I'd heard of it in that way. And so a very, very small dose of what you would get in the hospital for a surgery can be administered via IV. I have not done that method. I've done they also have a sublingual tablets, which that's what I've done. And now they also have like nose sprays now. So there's different types, and they have the sprays are more like micro doses that are daily. Again, I haven't tried anything else except for the sublinguals, but it's very person to person in terms of what that dosing looks like and what your experience might be. But the sublingual and nasal sprays are a bit more, they're not as expensive. So what else can I say about ketamine? Essentially, ketamine is a medicine that you take, and it, again, sort of separates you from your ego. And it also separates the feelings and the meanings that you've attached to an event. And so typically you will go in and you'll have some sort of intention that you've been working on. Maybe an intention might be, ketamine, show me what I need to see. It could be that general. It could be ketamine, show me self-love. Ketamine, show me a way out of this depression, or whatever. You don't necessarily get an insight right away from that, but typically after the medicine, especially if you've been meditating on this, like I do a lot of preparation. It's not just like something that you take and you go about your day. What you do before and after is huge. And so, yeah, essentially you tend to have insights over the next couple of days. And it's almost like you can observe yourself, but without all of the stories that you have attached to yourself. And so the next 5 to 7, I think it's 4 to 7 days after you've had a ketamine treatment, those are the days where neuroplasticity is happening. And so it's kind of like, let's say there's a fresh plot of snow now. You've had like grooves going down skiing. And when you do ketamine, it's a fresh coat. And so even if I don't believe it, I can say, I am enough, I am enough, I am enough. Like I'm listening to all kinds of positive things. And I'm telling you, I went from feeling like having body image issues and all kinds of like things to thinking, oh, I'm actually like kind of amazing. Like I believed it. And it's like my confidence like shot up. And so I've used ketamine to help me really get in touch with parts of myself that I felt like had been dormant. And then I was able to make connections as to why and like what influenced that happening, but have a new perspective and also be able to sort of say, okay, that was then, moving forward. And I feel like it's just made me a lot more open and curious and yeah, just curious. Curiosity is like the best thing ever. So to be able to tap into that, it opens up so many possibilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And it's good to learn more about something like that for folks, because this is a modality that they can explore. And I love how you talk about curiosity, because going back to your 20-year-old, 20, 25, mid 20-year-old self, you had that curiosity that allowed you to dive into things that were uncertain. And you spoke a little bit about as you got older, and you kind of go through these maturity years of, oh, I have to be an adult and I have to do this, and our curiosity bar just decreases. And I see that with so many people, and I've seen that with myself periodically. It's not like I'm a curious person, I'm always curious. It's like it's kind of that thing you need to cultivate and to be able to groom, and to be able to see when your curiosity is being reduced, and then do things to re-increase it, because that's what allows us to kind of continually reflect and think about ways to continually improve. And I know everybody listening in wants to continually grow, but if you lose that curiosity, you're missing kind of 3/4, half of the picture of where you can go next and what you should explore and confront.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love the fresh coat of snow, because that's I can feel that within my nervous system, and just it's very visual for me because I'm a visual learner, so I can imagine that fresh coat and fresh grooves to be able to intentionally create it, because they talk a lot about our stories, from childhood, like they're kind of baked into us, right? It's like people, your parents, your aunts and uncles, your siblings, they all threw their different things into the oven, and then that's what comes out and gets put into you and becomes a part of the story you continually, the recording, the tape that you continually tell yourself. And it's like that voice that you just hear over and over again.
Yeah.
That like it almost like haunts you, and it's so hard to eliminate it or push it away. So.
Yeah. And that's it. And I'm not saying, I don't think any healing modality or treatment, like, I don't think anything is just you take it and you're good, or you do this therapy and you're healed and perfect, right? Like I think the ketamine specifically, it makes it a bit easier where, and again, it works for, I think the percentage is like 70 or so % of people who there are, requirements, not requirements, but attributes and things that, would increase your success. But typically, if you have struggled with depression and anxiety, the days after doing a treatment typically will lift that a bit. And so when we're talking about that neuroplasticity, it's a great time to start trying to build those habits that have been so hard, especially if you are, just sort of paralyzed by the weight of depression. And so it's a little bit easier to just say, oh, I don't really want to go to the gym, but just go. Like I don't go back and forth like that, It's just a little bit easier. Things don't feel as hard. I feel like I was going somewhere with that, but yeah.
It's like a weight. It sounds like a weight lifted off the decision-making process almost.
Yeah.
We have that weight that we're like, we have to be on this side, we have to be on that side. And we're like thinking about which one's going to feel better. Now we want that instant dopamine hit. And sometimes I'm not going to go to the gym. I'm going to, I don't know, whatever the other alternative is, that feels better instantly. But then the gym is that mid-long-term benefit. And it's hard to choose that weight because it feels heavier up front. It's a heavier lift to get there. Then it feels really light after you do it.
Yeah. And Greg, I also just want to mention, I don't want to make it seem like ketamine therapy is just like all roses and, I'm talking about the positive benefits, but, I have, and I know many people, because I'm in the ketamine like support group, like I go to groups every week, like it's, I have a lot of community is everything. So please don't, I can't tell people what to do, but there are certain places where you do the medicine and then you just go home. Like, please find a therapist, a community. Some of these places do have community like groups that you can join or that are a part of the program. It's huge and everything. But what I wanted to point out was that there may be some hard stuff, especially if you have some unresolved trauma or maybe stuff that's repressed. I absolutely had a repressed memory that I completely just I totally forgot about. And it was incredibly painful for me I basically had to sort of reprocess that. And it was painful, but I had to process the anger and the rage that I didn't allow myself to have or to express in that moment. And so, it really, for me, has been like a purging of, I think, emotions that have been trapped, especially for someone like me who's an intellectualizer and can just really compartmentalize and dissociate easily if I want. I don't have to do that so much.
I like how you said "if I want" because that's it's not the world giving it to you; it's you making the decision. So.
But it's like, in a way, it can be a skill set where I can say, imposter syndrome tried to come out this morning, and I was like, no, put it in the box. I don't need you. Go up the street, take a hike, like get out of here. I know what I know.
Yeah. I love that. That's a key mindset for people to take away. And everybody wants to get there, but it's not an easy path to get there. Like you mentioned, it's not all roses. Like you said, it's not like go do a ceremony. You're now the best person that you want to be. It's the beautiful mess, as I call it, to get through those different stages, and then it's still going to be messy going forward. But it's that continual improvement. And I like how you mentioned the purge, because I think we hold things in so much. If we're not somebody that talks about our emotional state, and not that you have to, really like every conversation needs to be about, the healing and the emotional state you're going through. But if we don't get it out, it just sits in there. It's like, I say like a carbonated soda or something that you put into a bottle. And if you keep carbonating it in the bottle, eventually it needs to purge. But a lot of people hold it in, which, it impacts your nervous system, impacts your skin. It impacts everything. It impacts your whole health because it's just sitting in there and kind of ruminating. And a lot of people talk about those journeys, the ketamine, the plant medicines. A key part I know on the plant medicine side is the purge. Like that is a part of the process of going through that journey is vomiting, because you kind of, for hours, you sit with, things that it could be minutes, but most of the time it's a couple hours where you're sitting with things that you needed to confront, and then you purge. And a lot of people after that, they say they feel a sense of lightness, and they feel a sense of like everybody's laughing and giggling, because it's kind of like it's not from the substance. It's because nobody typically does that. Like, imagine you having a hard conversation with a friend, like getting out everything you needed to have. Most of the time you'll feel a smile come on because it's just such a release of lightness. And I think a lot of people don't get to that point. And I know, probably in your practice, one of your goals is to get people and couples to that point where they now feel lighter in their dynamic together. Have you seen anything that helps people, generally get to that point, either initially or, periodically throughout their journey?
So I work mostly with couples, and I guess I'd say helping them to get to a lighter place. A lot of it sounds kind of, I feel like it sounds simple, but for a lot of people, I find that they are, their self-care, like it's not present at all, like individually. And so they're coming in like, help this relationship, help us thrive, help us stop fighting. But like, you're not eating, you're not sleeping, you're being abused at work, you hate it, you feel stuck, you're drinking, like just all the, like, there's all these external things. And I have to like help them see your relationship isn't happening in a vacuum. Like, you are human and like things are happening and you are not prioritizing. You can't prioritize the relationship. You're not even prioritizing yourself. You're coming in like your battery is red. It's like, it's hot. You haven't turned your phone off in like months. It's like, when's the last time you turned your phone off, Greg?
Yes. A couple of days ago, but it's not normal. So.
I mean, you get what I'm saying though, right?
Yeah.
Like, so the first thing I do is I usually will ask couples in the first session, like, tell me about your day to day. Like, before we even dig into what the problems are, like, tell me about your day to day, and also tell me what's going well. And like, that gives me a little something of where they are and, what may be contributing or making it difficult to really hear each other. Even just be kind. Sometimes I'm like, do you guys like each other? Like, look, let's like talk about friendship intimacy. Like, would you talk to a friend like that? And, sometimes they're like, I'm like, would you roll your eyes at you? Would you talk to me like that? And then they just sort of pause,
Yeah. Jeez. Yeah, a lot of people, when they heal, they want to, or when they have a conversation in that format, it's like, let's just ruminate on the negative because we want to solve. But ultimately, starting with the good and then figuring out what's blocking you from continuing to achieve or continually strike that balance of that good dynamic. Maybe it's what went good in your relationship recently, and how can we continue to make that take place, as opposed to thinking about the 50% or more that has been bad. I found myself, as I was going through, I've been probably about a year now with the therapist that I see, and when I first went in, it was, here's what's going wrong in my life, here's what's going wrong, like, help me solve it. But over time, I start with the good, and I'm like, well, all of this good stuff is happening, but there's a couple things that are blocking me from continuing to grow in those good areas, and here's what they are. And it's much easier to do the good and then confront some of the negatives that are stopping you, and then get back to the good. And that good is better because of that interaction.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I think like another great thing is sometimes things are rough. Like, sometimes I think people don't like, I'm like, we can sit in this sadness. Like, yeah, this sucks. This is tough. We can try and explore what you can do. But I think even just helping couples to have some self-compassion, like maybe one of them is taking care of their dying mother and they have young kids, and they're like, there's a lot going on. I'm not gonna, do the positive or the toxic positivity, like sometimes life can be rough. And, I think that there's something to like accepting and I don't know how people feel about this, but I think life is 50% awesome, 50% awful. Like, I mean, like they're like, and it can switch and change like multiple times throughout the day. I felt really groggy and quite just like wrong side of the bed this morning. And within 30 minutes, and I think a lot of this is also like ketamine helping me to like say, okay, you didn't get good sleep. Let's see if we can change your mood. Let's see if we can conjure up another vibe. Let's just see. No pressure. No, like you have to get it together or you're going to suck on this podcast. That would have been me a few years ago. But it's like it's okay to not be okay. Let's own that. We don't have to be nasty to each other. We don't have to, take it out on each other. But like even just teaching couples, can you hold space for his sadness? Can you hold space for her disappointment?
Yeah.
Building your tolerance for those uncomfortable or negative emotions. I don't like to call them negative, but
yeah, that's the reality. I think one of the first parts that you mentioned earlier is awareness and being aware of what the reality is. And a lot of us try to distract ourselves from what it means because we want that 100% positive and just say the negative doesn't happen, and that's making us run away. But there's still the weight on our back, which is definitely something I think we've all felt. But just confronting that reality that things are going to be good and bad, and we have to just do our best. And what do you think that, I know it, every relationship is most of the time a reflection of what's going on within that individual. What do you think couples, because it's such a complex dynamic, whether it's a business partnership, because that's almost like a marriage, or it's a love or friendship partnership, what do you think people struggle with most when it comes to bringing themselves to others and creating a healthy dynamic? Not healthy all the time, because it's going to be up and down, and you have to be able to have those tough interactions, conversations. But what do you think people struggle with most in today's world? I know it changes because of technology. Different things come about where it throws another wrench in the equation. But any commonalities you see of what people struggle with and some of the things that have helped them, I guess, resolve or create a better dynamic going forward?
I think what comes to mind is shame. Now that sounds maybe a little ambiguous, but like shame attached to like how they will be seen or perceived. And I think alongside this thread of like perfectionism and like things need to always be good, I need to always feel good. Taking accountability or owning that you messed up, or even owning that something really hurt you. Sometimes that brings about shame for people. And I think shame really blocks vulnerability, and it blocks you being able to get help a lot of the time because we go inward. And so being able to like call out that observation, or I'll share that observation and say like, is that like, I'll just kind of sense it, and just being able to recognize that can be the start to sort of maybe making some moves, and even just being able to acknowledge, I really don't want to talk about feelings because I am deathly afraid of conflict. And there's shame around conflict for me because my parents fought like cats and dogs, or they never, ever fought in front of me. And the fact that I'm having a fight with my wife, what does that mean about me? We shouldn't be fighting. Did I answer your question, Greg?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm kind of
with that. No, absolutely. I think that's at the core of many things that people look at as they're kind of like secondary issues. But I think that's at the core. That's what people are struggling with is, how do I perceive this situation, and how are others going to perceive how I perceive it? So, and a lot of that is the shame shame from our younger years, or our perspective of how we're looking at, how that person may perceive it. And I think the healthy dynamic is obviously you care for other people and you care about how they feel from what you're putting out. But it's almost going into the situation of just having that honesty of, we might have a fight, but I feel, initially into the conversation, I feel shame going into this fight because of XYZ happened. Do you think it's still, healthy, or do you think it's still productive that we, have this intense conversation with that in mind? And I think that is a healthy relationship to some extent. It's just being able to dump it all out there.
Yeah. 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 And being able, again, I think it's a skill in building up your tolerance, especially if you grew up and emotions were bad, or emotions got you in trouble, or you were told you're too sensitive. It's a lot of unlearning, but building your tolerance for the intensity of all the emotions, expanding your window of tolerance. That's been a huge intention for me the past few months.
Yeah, I heard some recently. It was emotions are best in motion, something like that, where it's like, where you have to, yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's not I'm an emotional being, or I'm not. That's how a lot of people listening in today process. And I've been there periodically, where it's just like, that person's too emotional, or that person's not emotional enough. And it really is the up and down. And if we stop judging it and stop, letting it give us shame, I think that's where we're able to work it out in a healthy, productive way.
Yeah. Yeah. Judgment. I think that's huge. Like removing that, because it gets in the way of the awareness of the observations of the ahas.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I think the awareness, the judgment, you mentioned that early on, is when people can, walk away from this episode, this interaction, and think about, how they're speaking to themselves, how they're judging themselves based off situations, is just so powerful. Because we all often have this mirror into the window into the world of how we're judging other people, or how other people are judging us, as opposed to how we're judging ourselves, which is really impacts the first two more than anything else.
It's so true. Ooh.
What how important is people that are in a relationship, how important is the other person to their healing versus just themselves in their healing journey? How do you see that? Because you see couples, and you see either one broken person or two people who are going through difficult situations, and that's creating a situation where they want to go talk to somebody else. So there's obviously a little bit of friction, or they're just like, hey, we love exploring our relationship, and we want to talk to somebody great about it.
They're not reaching out to me if they're supposed to know where they are. So wait, the question was,
how important is the other person?
Okay. Yeah. Versus both. They're both important. I'd say what you're doing on your own, like, has the most weight. And that also includes, like, being honest about working on vulnerability, and being honest about what you need, and what support looks like for you, or accountability, not managing your stuff or your trauma, but like supporting. And then, your partner being honest about if they can meet those needs. I mean, you ideally, our partner is helping us grow in all the areas that we're wanting to grow, and vice versa, right? But I do think there's a myth out there that I see this a lot online and on social media, like, oh, I'm going to heal. I'm taking time to do myself, and then I'm going to date, and then I'm going to do X, Y, Z, or then I'm going to look for the job, or, whatever. And you absolutely, you can do some healing on your own. But if we're talking about, like, relational wounds, we heal in relationship. That's how I can be in my head and say, okay, these are my boundaries, but actually, like, doing them, actually, holding them, actually, yeah, being clear about what those are, and putting them in place. It's a different thing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's a key takeaway because, and this is, this is like you said, it's a little trendy, but people are basically saying, I'm going to rest, and then I'm going to go exercise really hard. And they're like, I'm going to rest for years, go in monk mode. And then all of a sudden I'm going to get into this
Like,
love of my
oh,
life relationship. And I'm going to run right into it. And it's going to be perfect. And because I did the work, and then they hit a wall where it's like a month in, it's like, it's not right. And it falls apart. And then they're like, well, why did I just do that whole year of healing when they could have been, you heal, you put it into place, you heal, you put it into place, you go through hard times. That is where the magic happens. That's where the progress happens, when you actually go through the resistance. So it's more of a routine. Not that dating's a routine and you have to go like, date all the time, but you have to go put yourself out there and put yourself in situations for that resting to be, that resting, those lessons, that growth to be put into practice, put into out into the world to see what comes back. And if you don't do that, I look at it as, your muscles get strained when you rest too long and then try to go exercise really hard. That's what a lot of people are doing, and it's like whoa, that's not going to work out well.
Well, and the thing is if we're using like the example of dating, if like that's something, if you want to like seek partnership or whatever you're looking for in dating, we have to date to practice. That's where you learn what you like, what you don't like. That's where you learn, oh, that's a boundary for me. That's where you learn, oh, that's what I value. Okay, this is what it looks like when someone values that. Okay. Like we can be online and but you're staying up here in your head. You got to get out. So you don't have to figure it out on your own. Everything is co-created. Everything. We're not doing anything on our own. I think the expectation that, we're so hyper independent in America, and it's like, do your own thing, figure it out. I feel like that robs us of joy and connection and creativity and being.
Yeah.
If it's like it's all on me, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and it stunts curiosity. We talked about that a little bit, where you're not getting others to feed into your curiosity. You're kind of, you're stunting based off of the internal tape and story that's playing inside, which I think everybody wants. Everybody wants these things, but getting there is so cloudy to them. And this has helped kind of clear some of those clouds, so you can see things, through the, the different storms that come up. You have that kind of that thread, through those storms to say, here's an option of the way I could think about this, and some things I could put in place and practice and put myself out there. And I think that allows you to push through the storms of life, the different seasons, as I call them. And but if you're constantly cutting your thread, you're like cut the thread each time, and you're like, oh, I'm just going to be over here in the corner, and that thread will come back when I'm perfect and ready for the world to throw another storm at me. It's never going to happen. So
no, that's a great analogy.
Where can folks find you? Where can folks connect with you if they want to learn more and be able to maybe engage you in their relationship?
I'm on Instagram and TikTok. The handle is Saving the Saver, SAVER. Yeah, that's where you can find me. I'm on anything else? No, that's it.
I'm gonna put make sure we put the links in the description on YouTube and on LinkedIn so people can connect with you. Jelisha, it's been such a pleasure, and I want to acknowledge you for what you're putting out in the world. A lot of times when we're in a profession, we feel that everybody is having a similar conversation or is doing the same thing, but you're really putting your unique spin, the experiences you've had, and you're making it an accessible, unique avenue that people can go down and experience growth with you. It's not the go to the shaman or go to the person who has life figured out and ask them the questions, and they're going to give you the answers. It's let's explore the answers together. And I love that you take that stance, because you have unique experience. You're a conscious individual. You've had modalities you've explored, and you're bringing those to people when they need them, to bring them along the journey. And I'm sure you learn as well. So it's that win, that I say the win-win-win, because everybody leaves a little bit better off, and you also benefit. And I love that you're doing that for the world, and definitely look forward to hearing more about your journey going forward, and learning, what you learned from everything you're putting out in the world. One of the ways we like to wrap up the show is, what does connection mean to you in your life?
Connection for me is, it's kind of like a buzzing energy. I know that sounds a little ambiguous, but I usually will say, I know I'm feeling connected if I say, ooh, I'm feeling a little buzzy. I don't know. That's what I always say. It's buzzy. Like, I feel this buzz. So it could be like, I just had a connection with this stranger at the coffee shop. It could be something, far more intense, or, I'm really intellectually stimulated by this conversation, or this course that I'm taking. I guess just feeling like kind of lit up, and then taking stock of like, what is cultivating, or how is this feeling being co-created again, because everything is. I guess I don't, that's how I would describe it. Like, that's what comes to mind.
I love that. We actually haven't heard that before. Somebody like feeling connection. Like, a lot of people think about like connecting to a relationship or connecting to the internet, like the people. And it's just interesting, because connection is such a word that means something different to everybody, but what it feels like when you're in that connected state. And I love that you mentioned the buzz, because when you're in a connection that serves you well and is in your wheelhouse, as I say from a baseball term, it is a buzz. It feels like your soul, your nervous system, your brain is buzzing with goodness or greatness, whatever the word you want to put it to it is. So I love that definition.
Yeah, thanks.
Absolutely. Jelisha, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks,
Looking forward to continuing the conversation, and keep up the great work.
Thank you, Greg. Okay, take care.